Yeah, today we will talk about arc unit, which is supposed to be, converting a lot of architectural rules into code, unit testable code. That way, most of the architectures, where we want, for example, when you say Spring, we should do this dependency controller should talk to view should talk to model, something like that. Now, all of them can be enforced using a very, very simple API of arc unit. And we can go through some of those rules which are actually covered as a part of the website given by arc unit itself, where when you really want to make sure source one actually allowed to talk to foo, but not source two or source three, any other source, then we can always say that no class that resides in package. So this is a star source saying that anything in the package above source and below source should depend on a class that resides in foo package. So this is the way the core of arc unit is convert something similar to infrastructure as a code, try to convert architecture as a code. So which I think it was a very good way of thinking, because there are many tools which enforce architecture with visually, where they are really struggling about how to show you the dependencies are managed well. Most of the time what happens, because I do a lot of clean code and code reviews, most of the time complexity grows if people are just calling some method because in that context it works. But in a large code, this becomes a pain, because anybody calling anybody is not agreeable, not maintainable. And that's where arc unit has a best place. And it is very mature, and I mean still it is mature. I mean there are a lot of features I did file for them, but I think it is good enough for most of the junior engineering, and a senior is able to communicate what an architecture importance through this kind of unit tests. So similarly, it talks about package level dependency, talks about class level dependency, which class can depend on which other class. So classes that have simple starting with if we should reside in package. So it is enforcing something like any class which starts with foo should reside in a package called com.foo. So is the flow okay?
Yes, as of now, yes.
Yes. So similarly, so that you can talk about inheritance, where a class implementing class, a connection class should have simple name ending with connection. So like that, there are a lot of checks which anybody can do it, and especially I would say importance is on the layers check, which layer should talk to which layer. Basically, if you want to talk about Spring MVC, all those rules can come here. So it will tell you that this class actually defined by package so and so, a service defined by service package, where controller is not accessible by any layer. No layer should access, none of these service or persistence should access a controller. However, service can actually access controller. Persistence can also access service. So it's very, very simple, but yes, I think it will still take little more time. But I would say the beauty of arc unit is that they are reusable. Most of the time unit tests, people have to write on their own knowing the domain. But the beauty of this arc unit is, when you say Spring framework, you can always search for it. I mean, which nobody tells it, but I discovered it myself that, whatever the Spring framework rules which are there in GitHub example, you can reuse them, most of them. That way, one of the good thing is, it is enforcing the architecture. It is not people need not discover what kind of architectural rules they have to code. They can actually copy from other existing existing GitHub and start reusing it and modifying it. And the cyclic dependencies we know, right? A depends on B, B depends on C, and C depends on A. So that also it will actually alert. So these are the major rules as a part of arc unit. And then, I think, so you can see the API. The Java doc is not very clear. I would say go with examples. I have written, I've not written any example, but I've taken the existing ones and then converted into more simpler to understand. That way, credit is not mine, but I did take, if you really see from where it was taken, you can see that. Yeah, I've taken the code of, MSR Yoda. And then, I try to make it as simple as possible. So this has got a controller, domain, infrastructure, services, slice. So they have actually created a very good examples where we say we break the architecture. We will spoil the architecture and make sure that, the test cases are catching it. So for example, cycle dependency. So any class should actually not depend on any other. So that's what he means by slice. So this is the rule. So the good thing about it is, there are different versions of ArcUnit where you can actually follow JUnit 4 annotations, or they have a JUnit 5 engine compatibility also. That way, I would recommend go with JUnit 5 because it is much more concise than JUnit 4. And do some experimentation. For example, I can run this and then show you. So yeah, this will open like now. It is clearly saying that it has failed. Their reporting is also very good, where it talks about how many tests were written, how many are failures, and then you can get into each of the package level tests. And then in the package, you can very well see what are those exceptions. And layered architecture, consisting of, so it is very clearly saying that it is also quoting the rule also, right? Layer controller services infrastructure, so this rule has been violated. So infrastructure may be accessed by layers, but the services actually violated 2 times. So that way, it gives you presence of an architect without he being physically present. And if you can see the rules, they're very, very simple, in terms of, exactly like we saw in the documentation. You have a package level, class level, inheritance, method level. A lot of those are there. Now, this is based on the method level. So this is one, I would say I can share some of the code which is there in my GitHub. Please, I want you to really check a README file and then follow those instructions so that you will be able to further experiment. One more example I can show you based on JUnit 5. Hope it works actually, I don't know. So JUnit 5 is little concise in terms of test cases where you don't have to write run with a lot of that, analyze just one thing, analyze classes is good enough. Otherwise, in JUnit 4, you have to use run with a little more extra annotations are required. So you can check code styling also. See, what I would say that most of these rules you can reuse them. No field extension, no use of Joda time. And then that rule is exactly you can use it as it is, how they have defined it as a part of utilities. Some of them are there as a part of utilities. The library of the ArcUnit. This is an ArcUnit. It has actually defined some of these rules, and then if you want it, you can just use it and then say call it as ArcUnit. That's where I said most of these rules you can actually reuse it, either coming from ArcUnit, or you can, for your company, you can define your own ArcUnit library and then let everybody use it. So that is the real power of becoming architecture as a code. More and more you are able to see inherit best practices in the architecture, and then you just have to write some that same code, just reuse that code as it is, and then any violation will be caught in by CI/CD. So far clear?
So one quick question I have here.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we are enforcing the rules through the test classes, right? Is this something at the framework level? Is this anything can be controlled? Like in case if you're having some kind of a dependency, something in case if we add it, I know like this arc unit will be added kind of a dependency through when we are writing the code itself that can be detected.
So are you asking, if you have your own framework?
Not my own framework. I'm just saying this arc unit itself. I'm just taking it as an example, right? So I'm seeing for the first time today, the arc unit, right? So hopefully this one will be coming through the Maven, and then through the Maven, can that be enforced at the time when we are writing it? Because here what I say is like when we are building.
Okay, got it. Okay, what you are saying is, do you have an IDE plugin so that then
Correct,
and there?
correct. Yes,
Got
that's
it.
the right way to
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I think they don't have any plugin so far. But I think, it's mostly you have to run the test cases. But
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. We should suggest that, can they really put it as a part of the plugin? But maybe that may look similar to static code analysis.
Hmm.
But definitely it can evolve to that level. Yes, you're right.
If I understand, this is not a new framework, but Sendil, to answer your question, this is just a plugin on top of JUnit 5. So whatever IDE plugins that you enjoy with JUnit 5, you can still enjoy with ArcUnit also. Correct me if I'm wrong, Raja.
Right. I think, yeah, see, you can run this as a part of the unit test from the, from build of IDE. But I think maybe what I got from him was, can I have an error shown automatically? For example,
Exactly. Yeah.
like when I say slice one, I am doing it, it should show that, it's an arc unit violation.
See, like just one example, like, still I have not used much for the Vera
Like
code. We
this,
have
right?
some.
You need to get, like, yeah, this is an arc unit violation.
Yes.
I mean, this is for some other error, but yeah, tomorrow if somebody is trying to call, this one is actually error, right? It's a call slice one from, calling slice two. Then it should show this yellow color and then say it is an architectural violation. So was that you, I mean, did I understand that, that
Exactly. That's correct way.
Okay, fine, right. And like Satish said, you can run these because at the end, though I'm saying architecture as a code, they are actually plugging into existing unit testing. So that way, any unit testing, framework, you can run it from, debug, everything you can do it.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So that much, yeah, you can run it, but I think if you want it as, while typing, all the context, then, yeah, that plugin is not there, but that's a very good idea.
Thanks, Raja. Please.
Sure. Okay. So now I would say, I want everybody to learn rather than trying to learn it as an architecture, in the terms of, interviews. I would say, please learn these test cases. So they are very, very seen. It should not use no Java util logging. See, that's what I think you should start looking at it. No generic exceptions, no access to standard streams. See, this is what, I would say is a much more fine-grained way of thinking on how to write a good, a good code, which is architecturally doesn't become complex.
Hi Raja, myself Kishan. Hi.
Sure.
So if you look at our static code analysis, we have a set of rules which says this is a violation of static code, right? The code smokes or code smells, all those would be there. But do we
Right.
have any such rules for these architectures so that it shows us the violation?
That initially I showed you, right? What it actually talks about. One minute. So this is where you can actually see somewhere there's some clash, it's very easy to get confused that, because once it becomes a code, we think, everything can be done with static code analysis, which are right actually. But the static code analysis are not specific to a framework, right? Like, are you enforcing MVC framework?
Okay.
Are you enforcing proper dependencies?
Right.
So that you can actually write it. So now you see package level dependency. When you are writing a product, when you are creating a product, you as an architect, you can define that, yeah, boss, I mean, see, somewhere I wanted to again understand architecture and design, low level design. Yeah, this comes near more of a low level architecture and design, where you get to the code level and then say that, boss, this should not happen, this should happen.
Right.
So these are the rules you should worry about, like package level dependency, class level dependency, class and package, containment, little learning. But I think, even if you don't learn this, I would say go through the examples I will share the links. If you go through this, it will be the ultimate way of saying that, I'm practicing good architectural principles.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So I would say this is the best way to say that, how unit tests can help. Even, juniors can start learning good practices at an architectural level.
Got it. Yeah.
So one
So it
question, not sure whether we have already covered it or not. So do we have any governing body for this? Like, PMBOK, BABOK, some like OWASP, right? What it is complaint of, the inherent rule that is inbuilt in the ARC unit. So what is the governing body are based out of, sir?
I am not sure, but I think most of the thing what I would say that is, so far we have good practices coming from, when you say cloud level.
Sure.
A lot of now architecture is becoming a commodity because, see, nobody is architecturing how my cloud scale application should look like. They're taking it from Amazon best practices and then trying to implement.
Okay. See,
So,
rather I
but
would
yeah,
rather strengthen it from my question from other way. So from TOGAF perspective, right, the Open Group Architecture Framework, which is totally agnostic to the technology or the domain what we use. So in case if it is an architect, right, from the TOGAF level, if you want to get it implemented or a supplemental byproduct, if I want to make use, so is there a commonality or how do I bring that in? Just that's the backed up fact of my question.
okay. Yeah, I've not come across that body, but I only see it as a good practices from architecture.
Sure.
Let me go back and then like
That
you
helps,
said,
sir. Thank you.
there
No
must be
worries.
something, somebody
Sure.
must
And
be
we
working on
have
it.
a facility to extend it as well, right? For sure. We can extend and customize the severities and all that, right? The rules.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's an open source. You can always customize it.
Got it. Thanks.
Right. And yeah, beyond those bodies, like you said, yeah, bodies can give those rules. That's where I think, ultimate easier adoption.
Yep. So that's
Yeah,
again, this may not be really helpful in all the cases wherein if any product they want to certify, there it will be very helpful. Like, it's TOGAF complaint or OWASP complaint. In that level, if this product is, inclined towards that body, it will be easy for the product to be certified from the architectural perspective as well. That's the thing. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
You're right. Yeah, if somebody can actually certify that, I mean,
Yes.
like when you say certification, those architectural certifications
Correct.
can help in, how easy to maintain that product code.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So from that angle, yeah, it really makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Good. I'm learning more actually from all your questions. Thank you. Like that, I think, yeah, maybe I'll take you through Spring. Excuse me if it doesn't work. I was trying some experimentation, which I think, I want Satish to talk more. Yeah, because he started with asking me to talk about Spring level, some of those APIs. We did something in terms of controllers and models. So these are the tests related to controllers. So what are the tests which are applicable in the context of Spring? And how do you architecturally make sure that there are no violations? So like that, we have actually put even test cases as a part of models. So what are the kind of tests, which are applicable in the context of Spring and associated with Spring models? So like that, yeah, services also. So we gave a very good example, but I think when I say we, it's all taken code from somewhere and then we would have modified it little here and there. So let me run that actually. IDE will show some problem because we are actually testing even IDE. See, real problem with because we are clean coders, we always think, the information of test cases associated with the class should be as near to the main class. Most of the time we are used to putting a parallel main and then you have a test, right? So that we know this ID itself is failing to our level of thinking on how the clean code should be practiced. But otherwise it does compile well. You can see this. This is the test cases which are run. And so now this is what you should focus on. Okay, bean methods are not allowed. Classes should be annotated. Component annotation not allowed. Constructor should not be private. So this is what I meant by, so basic things, if you can really put in place. So I think, a lot of tomorrow, we don't want people to say that, architecture has gone bad. Architectural debt has to be controlled very well. So like that, you can see entire packages, like each of those packages, you can go through all those tests from the models. What are those test cases? Why they are there? Because this is a working code. And then I think one of the instruction given to me was the coder should understand, they should go back and experiment, unlearn, self-learn. So that way, I think the code is there now. But I think you should experiment a little more and then get to know how to write architectural unit test using ArchUnit. So yeah, maybe the original code was actually on Maven or Gradle. We converted it into Kotlin. So that way, yeah. So these are the dependencies you should worry about. This is the only dependency. And I would say some of them, they were using, some of the examples had a very old version of architectural unit. That also we actually migrated it to the latest one. So this is what I have to say. I don't know if you want me to go through any of the code and then explain, I can do that. Otherwise, I would say I can give the links to where all you should go. I mean, they're against my GitHub. But I think, if Satish wants to take and then do some more code walkthrough, that would help.
So Raja sir, this question I think someone have asked, but again, so is it possible to get this like a warning or an error message into the compilation phase? I mean, yes, there are some rules which I mean, what is right now is a scenario that I have to write the application and then I have to run the test. And these tests will say like, okay, your code smells or your architecture is not up to mark, and we will go back and do some changes into the code and make it compatible. But is it possible that at the time when I am writing the code, by some hooks or by some way, they will tell like, okay, this is not the right way to write?
Right. See, we should have, there's a little difference between static code analysis and architectural, violations.
I understand.
So what I would say that, static code analysis are very generic and they can be caught, at a, during a compilation time or during the editing time. But architecture, you are enforcing that, what packages can depend on what packages. What packages should not depend on what packages.
So okay, it is impossible to find it at the static time, is it?
I would say yes, it is impossible to generalize them, but what I would understand is that there's still a scope while writing. When an architect says that, you write the functionality, and if he has written the corresponding test cases, then an IDE tool or a compiler, maybe if not compiler, IDE plugin can actually read those unit test cases and then enforce it at an IDE level. that, you are violating this test case. For example, let's say, I mean, it's still a great intelligence, but I write a unit test saying that, this method should take A and B and return C. And if the IDE understand that it is a unit test, and whenever it sees that method, call calculate, if it runs that corresponding test case, and if it fails, it can actually show you as an error then and there. But I would say for now, I think, architect should at least enforce a lot of unit tests to be written, and let that be part of whenever a unit tests are run, let them be run, and then let the report come from CI/CD. That I would say is possible now.
Yes.
But if you want to go to the next level,
Raja, if I understand, to answer Vaibhav's question, RQ it heavily depends on reflection, because static code analyzer just can check at the source level, it can do the parsing, but RQ will go one level higher, it will check who is calling and what is the access modifier that you have given, what is the annotation that you have given. So these kind of information are only available when you are running the test cases. To answer Vaibhav's question, until you run the JUnit test cases, you cannot see it. Raja, correct me.
yes, you're right. I think you
I
should treat it as whatever the question asked. Please see, if that is right in the context of writing unit tests.
Right. Right.
And
right.
the same rules will apply even for architects, because you are writing arc test as another unit test.
Right. Right.
Yes, yes.
I got it. I got it. So these are much more differentiable from the functional test. They are like as you mentioned, they are like architectural tests. Say like
Exactly.
just like the package should always start with say like Teja Soft. So
Exactly.
kind of rules I can definitely push people for. And they are really not checking anything on the functional side, but they are checking like the whole architecture of the code should be intact and should not be broken. Okay.
Yeah, dependency, code level dependencies.
Code level dependencies. Okay. Okay. That sounds cool.
And it is simple, but I would say that, though we are saying simple, you need to practice it to make sure that, unless you do it 2-3 times, you will not feel the comfort.
Yes, things which are awesome in our life are all simple only. So
Exactly, you should get used to it. But I would say I can only give you that feeler because I was so excited, when Satish told me. I said I have to learn something more. But once I learned, I felt, man, it is so simple. The kind of examples which we could get also are very good. They gave it so nicely, right? The names, if you really see it, by reading it, that what is the rule which is enforced at a unit level. I mean, at entire application level, it is checking. And then their reporting is also very good. I mean, in fact, there are some gaps which I did ask, but I want you to participate. This is the best way, when you're learning, you get a lot of ideas. And now I'm seeing that, I got a lot more ideas by, all of your questions. So that way, I think, if none of you file these questions, I will go and file it to ArcUnit. So that, I've seen that guys are responding well. Somebody from Germany. So this is the easier way to, build your reputation to the world. So some discussions I did ask. So in fact, I was asking, because now once I know that, this is actually, these are the rules we talk about. So are there any rules which I can actually use it for compliance to solid, GRASP, and gas principles? There are a lot many principles right now. All of them can go out. Gang of 4. And but this is actually a great thing, if somebody can actually generalize it to that enough, that solid principles, how they are, you are actually writing a generic. I mean, though I said it, when I say it package different is specific to each of the application, but the names of the packages are generic, like controllers, models. So that way it becomes generic. Similarly, if you want solid principles, dry principles with the standard naming conventions followed, and then if you can apply the unit test that way, I'm sure they can be very well reused. I've seen some of the applications which talk about architectural dependency management. They are very complex. Maybe some of you must have heard about structure 101. You heard of structure
Yes,
101?
yes. We had a big talk in Jug only in structure 101 by the owner of structure 101 itself. I mean, the
Oh, right. Yeah. So now they're all very complex tools. And I'm saying that yeah, this guy arc unit can be adopted very well. Lot of that can be caught with unit test itself. You don't have to wait for such level of analysis post complicating the code.
Yes. I agree. See, what happens, sir, that I have seen into the industry, like how the code become complex. Actually, this pattern is almost very similar, though I have not seen a lot of industry, but it is almost the same. So what happened? Everyone writes simple code, and everyone try to write the code which they understands. And what happens that people migrates from one to another and another to third and third to fourth. And slowly, what they will do, they will not think code as a holistic approach. They will think like, okay, let me patch this code. Okay. And the second guy is really not at all thinking that first guy have thought what at the time of writing this code. Okay, or he must have done this much of research and analysis, and then he has wrote this code. Now, what happens that when a class file or when a jar or a var goes from 10-15 people hand, in the end, what happens that you will see some code which is totally unreadable and which is totally jacking from one place to another place. Okay, recently I saw a code which is actually a Python code triggering a script, and that script is calling a Java file, and the Java file is calling the script again, and the result is getting returned to Python.
My God.
And what it was doing, it was not doing anything. It was just checking a JDB tool, right? A normal GDB tool of Java bin. Okay, but what happened? Some guy know Python, he wrote the code in Python. Some guy know scripting is very powerful, he wrote in scripting. Okay, maybe the guys are not knowing the process builder, that okay, in Java also we can invoke a process by process builder or something like that. And they know that okay, in Python invoking process is much easier. Okay, now what happened? I don't know how to stop these things even by these tools, but okay, I hate this multi-language business actually. Okay.
Polyglot.
Yes, I don't know. I should, yeah,
Polyglot, yeah.
polyglot business, because something which is simple, do it into the native of what you are writing the code. That's as simple as that.
And
Okay.
in fact, we always call unit tests as a documented requirements or code. It's a requirements in the form of code.
Yes.
Or programmable requirements.
That's very
So now one of the idea we got was, why not arc unit test itself? If they are made complex, it should test boss, you made it complex.
yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, that's where I'm saying, we should always simplify it. You're writing it not for your manager. You're not writing it for your career. I mean, I would say that, because, you are asked to write. You are writing it for being better, efficient yourself. So that way now, unit tests at a functional level, yes, all of you all of you are aware of, but think about, how to write architectural unit tests or copy the rules which are default available and applicable to your area of work, because that can give you a lot of efficiency gains.
I agree with you. Forcing someone to fit in a structure is much better than motivating someone to fit in a structure. I mean, you don't give enough time someone to get motivated and fit in a structure. So you always, it's a good idea to force someone to fit in a structure. Okay, and definitely the unit test and architectural test like this, it will force you. Your code will not go ahead. That's it.
Exactly. You don't have to spend time on debugging. Where is it going wrong? What is it going wrong? like, yeah, the main code just tells 10% of your intent. But
Yeah.
other 90% should come from the clean code practices, refactoring, unit tests, and unit tests. Now you can actually write not just at unit level. I mean, there are ways to test the performance. Now performance tests are also coming as unit tests. Scalability, load tests, all of them can come in. And the basis could be again unit tests. But yeah, if you run the same unit test in parallel, then that becomes a load test. So that way, each developer, 90% work is on writing unit tests and refactoring, and the other 10% should go on adding functionality. Yeah, because we are now shifting the, yeah, we were a services organization. I mean, India was known for services, but now, there is a competition to become ourselves as, product nation. That way, none of you should ignore, these are all not meant for manager to tell you. You as the professional should know that, oh, these are my default responsibilities. And if it is a pressure, that means, there is a skill gap within you, you should overcome it.
Yes. Yes.
So any other?
If someone who is here and they are not understanding the depthness of this, we have enough of the data analysis on this, and I can assure you that when a issue you find, I have told this many times into the jug, when you find a issue in house, it costs you X, and when escalation comes actually from the customer, it almost, for most of the company, it costs you 20X. Okay. And the reason is because there is a very huge amount of escalation metrics. Okay. There are like a lot of critical managers, directors, and a lot of people get involved when there is a escalation comes external to your boundary, right? And then again, the retrospection, why we have not caught it internally, what happened, what is going wrong. And that's the reason that why we should focus to develop so much about the test, because many times you will not understand. The thing is that, yeah, oh man, what is this? This test is passing all of the life. It's fine, it's passing all of the life, but it has written for some work, and the day when you will not write the good code, it will fail. Okay. So if you're really worried about reducing your industry or company expenses, what number one thing you can do is that you can reduce the number of escalations from the customer. Okay. And that can be only done what the sir is explaining us here. Okay.
See, while writing, you have the full context, but then, when you get into a new feature, you forget the old context. And that's why if you really write, about the for example, this is saying that, controller should only call secure methods. So it says that, yeah, every method, whatever we are talking about should actually should be annotated with secured. And then that you can enforce, how does a normal code can actually enforce that? When you're writing it first time, because you remember this rule, you are very comfortable saying that I know, and then I know it is calling only secured method. But a new person, or, you yourself after a month, how do you know that, oh, this rule has to be still enforced? So that way your requirement is 10% work, rest of it, you have to describe your intent and then cast them with unit tests. And that's something, all of all of you should remember and make sure that, you don't forget, your responsibility is to bring in your lot of your thought process as a code. It so happens that that code happens to be a unit test. I see on LinkedIn somebody debating that, tests unit, once you say unit test, people are thinking it is, QA has to do it. But actually, one good guy has told me that they are not unit tests, they are developer tests, dev tests.
Yes, exactly.
So that way, when we agree that always, if you rename it properly, then I think they're all developer tests, because it was your intent to say that, oh, my controller should always talk to secured methods.
Exactly.
So my request to all of you is please go through this, because they are very, very self-explanatory. And because this being an introduction, I want actually Satish to do more deeper on Spring, but unfortunately, I could not go deeper. But I think, yeah, so these are so nicely explained. This is another way of writing unit tests of what is your intent while writing the main code. That much message is going through this, I think, yeah, it's a good, knowledge here.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for sharing this with us. And
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jack.
I think we should just go ahead and explore the complete ARC unit.
Right.